Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Talking Horses. Sarah Bodway and Andy Serling as we get the holiday weekend going here, or day number 2 of our 3-day holiday weekend. 10 races on today's card, and feature is the Comely.
Yeah, a lot of scratches today that I think changed to some race shapes, but still a competitive card overall, and not an easy betting one for sure.
Well, I noticed that Linda Rice has made up in the last 2 days for a day where she had 9 horses entered, didn't scratch any of them, so she's making up for it over the last couple of days.
Everything
I
evens
agree.
out.
Vetriano obviously coming out, a big scratch in today's card. A horse who's going to be a heavy favorite, but maybe it'll make the race a little more interesting from a betting perspective, though if you were against Vetriano, obviously that's bad for you, or potentially bad, maybe good for you. Anyway, head over to Naira Bets. Use the promo code BONUS200. We'll match the $200 of your initial deposit. Play through Naira Bets. Check out track stats when you're over there as well. Also, we have a $10,000 hit and split late pick 5 here and at Woodbine as well. Is this closing weekend at Woodbine? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I can never figure out exactly when they close. This weekend, next weekend, it's somewhere in December. Anyhow, the late pick 5s here and Woodbine. So race number 1. This is quite a crew trying to go
Yes.
a mile and an eighth in here, and it's hard to be too excited about any of these horses, and it's hard to be too excited about him going a mile and an eighth. And I think the one sort of overriding theme and the fact that you've got a horse on the outside that's a kind of a ridiculously short price is that Jansen, who in some ways is the horse to beat, the number 2, we'll take a look at him 2 back. It just feels like he's had an awful lot of chances, an awful lot of races where he was short prices, and he just keeps coming up short.
Yeah, and I think that that's the problem with him, even though he has some of the faster numbers, and I guess at this level, more consistency running them, doing something like this, but he's just awfully tough to trust off of that last race. And this race 2 back, I think that it was well within the type of race that we have become adjusted to seeing from him, and that could win here, but the short price that he was last time, I know he had a little bit of bumping, but do you really think that anything was worth the poor performance?
I don't pay a lot of attention to bumping at the break, to be honest with you. I mean, it's got to be pretty severe. So, no, I just think he's a unreliable horse that's got races that make him the horse to beat. And at least he's got a couple more consistent figures than the horse that we picked. But I guess we're just kind of going to the drop down. But the thing about Tis the Prince, and I just picked him because I couldn't pick the number 2, and I can't pick Landauer. I don't know what to do with him, is he's dropping, but he has run at the lower level before, and he didn't run that well. I think maybe we're just trusting in Dave Duggan. It seems like his horse has been running well, but this is hardly a horse you want to get too excited about from the outside post going 9 furlongs at odds on.
No.
But I just can't find anybody else to pick.
There's no one exciting. That's the thing. It's just that he at least has had less opportunities at this level and was running in a maiden claiming race in Saratoga where they are generally kind of tough for the level with a lot of horses that do take those class drops. So I think that he would have to get a little bit faster off of that race in particular to be competitive with Jansen's race 2 back. But
the horse that won that race in Saratoga is awful. And, I mean, he's not any better than these. I don't know. I really don't know, Sarah. I picked him because I can't pick Landauer. And frankly, I want to see more from Christopher Elliott ever since that race when he was banging left-handed and drifting out 10 paths. I'm a little disappointed in what I've seen from him, and I want to see him pick his game up. He may well. He's a young rider. But going 9 furlongs on this horse whose dirt races, I mean, Landauer has that race back last March where he ran fast enough to be competitive here. His return race was just atrocious, and I know a lot of people think he was unlucky 2 back. I'm not one of them. He's just kind of a slow, plodding horse, but maybe the 9 furlongs will be right for him.
I hope it's right for somebody because it's not exactly as though anyone jumps
Could
off
be
the
wrong
page.
for all 7 of them, and somebody's still going to win. Exactly.
Yeah.
So unless there's a dead heat, we'll be losing at least one of these horses from the maiden ranks. Race number 2. Obviously, with the 1A Barry Funny entered tomorrow. And, you know, the morning line, I think, is very much based on Barry Funny. I don't think you're going to see 9 to 5 in hours in a day, but you never really know. We'll take a look at York Tavern running second last time out. And he gets a pretty big rider switch to Jose Lezcano. And while he is a 1 for 20 with 7 seconds and thirds, he is kind of the horse to beat here.
Yeah, I mean, he has the consistency. He has overall numbers that are maybe just a tick above some of the other horses in this group. I think that if you're looking for somebody to trust, and that's a loose term to use at $16,000 claiming level. I guess that he is the one. He just doesn't win, and he's going to be a short price in this field.
But his form is pretty consistent. He seems to run similar numbers every time, and they're numbers that make him competitive. You have the number 4 conniving on top.
Yeah, I just like the last 2 races from this horse. I feel as though he's one that's sort of taken a step forward off of some races where it took him some time to break his maiden and break through, and then they stepped him up to go on the turf. And then since he's joined this barn, he's had a couple of races that are just a little bit faster and a little bit of a return to some of the races that he had in the past. And while these don't exactly jump off the page as extremely fast numbers, I think for the level he just fits. And I didn't think that he was going to be the favorite in this race, but who knows?
No, I don't think Conniving is going to be the favorite in this race, nor do I think he should be. I mean, I think that rider error caused him to lose last time. He probably should have gotten through this condition in his last race, but he did do something that nobody's been able to do. He enabled a Flying P horse to wins, and the first win and only win I think they've had since Saratoga, unless they've won a race since then. And he should have won last time, and I'm not going to argue with you. He's obviously held his pretty good form, and he's not really any slower than the number 5, and he'll probably be a better price in here. I'm not going to argue against that. I just took hours in the day off the claim, off a maiden win for Linda Rice. She has very good numbers. Off a claim, off a maiden win on dirt. She's 10 for 30 with a 266 ROI, 17 hitting the board. In route, she's 4 for 12 with a 253 ROI. So it seems like when she claims these maidens, and obviously I think she was going to assume that he would probably win last time. He was a relatively short price, or it was likely to win. He's got to improve a little bit, but we've seen Linda Rice do this a lot of times, and so I took him as a somewhat of an alternative. He is not going to be the favorite. If he was 9 to 5, I wouldn't bet him, but I'm assuming that morning line is based on the 1A Berry Funny, who was sort of never running.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, race number 3. We'll see what happens there. He has it all. Ray Handel's Derby horse won yesterday with a 49 buyer. I texted Ray
His
last
Derby
night.
horse.
The first winner, the horse that got scratched in the paddock a few weeks ago, and Ray was saying he was his Derby horse. And I told him that I was a little disappointed. He ran a 49 buyer, which is not fast enough for me to make too much fun of Ray. First races can be aberrations, but that race was slower
hopefully
yesterday.
it is.
Well, it was slower than the $30,000 New York bred maiden claimers 2-year-olds in the third race. So unless the track dramatically changed, the first races are tricky. Anyway, he has it all. This is him finishing second a few races back. He has run fast numbers. He's run slow numbers. I don't know what to do with this horse, but I guess he's oddly the horse to beat just because he's shown more than others here.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that race where he did finish second to Vetriano, that number holds up with the others in that field,
Yeah.
but it is an outlier in a way for him, looking at his
Agreed.
other races overall, and
Yeah.
so he was a big price in there. Then he was bet following that number, and while I think that number fits with the field, I just want to see it again from him.
Yeah, and he was a big price, partly because Shlomo and Vetriano were super short prices. But I agree. I don't know what to do with this horse. I think he can win. You have gone to the number 6, Elvis himself.
I just like that he took a step forward with the numbers that he had last time out after a little bit of a brief freshening. I think that he showed some good speed first time out and got run down by another horse that was a super short price in there. And then I think he had no chance in that next start with the type of running style he's sort of shown over his limited starts with not getting to the front or having any early position. Then he comes back and he has some good speed. He puts away the other speed of that race, and then 2 horses come from off the pace to pick him up. But I like that he took a step forward on his numbers and that he has shown that speed more than once, especially in a field like this.
Yeah, I thought Speed was pretty good that day at Parks. I know the race he's in kind of collapsed. I kind of get that. But I thought Speed was pretty good. And isn't he going to have to deal, and obviously it's not impossible here, isn't he going to have to deal with he has it all up front? I mean, it's not like Romero is going to take back if he has it all breaks. He's going. So don't you think that he's going to have to deal with that one, at least to some extent? He's got to sort of put him away and hold off the closers. Now, the closers are a bit dubious in this race. Coach Patino, who probably was a runner.
Will he
even
ever
though,
get to the races?
Well, right, but he's
Poor
a
guy.
4-year-old making his debut at the end, and I imagine he can run. I can't imagine that Roddy Valenti would name a horse after his friend Rick Pitino and the horse not be a good horse. But he's not going to play today. I've gone towards the inside to the number 2, Tomorrow's Wish. who, in my opinion, has just run against significantly better horses, was wide back on August 10th on a day the rail was good, the track was fair. And last time out, he was chasing a race that kind of fell apart. They're better horses going a mile. And I just feel like he's getting significant class relief in this race. So I kind of went to him as opposed to the other horses. I thought he was a horse that might be a little bit better than he looks on paper.
Yeah, and I think Letter Perfect is a little bit interesting. That was the day where you wanted to be inside. He wasn't. He needs to get out of the gate a little quicker and certainly improve. But I think he had some legitimate excuses first time out.
Yeah, he's an oddball horse, right? A horse that Christophe had for LSU, and LSU moved some horses to Rudy. It feels like they moved some of the lower level horses. They paid a lot of money for this horse after he worked an impressive 10 flat at the 2-year-old sale last year.
Right.
And the thing is, he didn't really take any money in that race, which
No.
kind of surprised me. It was an off-the-turf race. And that
And no
sort
one's
of
really
bothered
come
me.
back.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a very good race he comes out of, but I agree he was against the track, and he is sort of a stranger to this crew,
Yep.
and probably the horse who has the most upside. We'll see if he can take advantage of it. Race number 4, going a mile. We'll take a lot of look at horses that are going to get bet off of turf races, and that's New Matthew and Trinity River, and even to a lesser extent Archer's Assault, who might be better in the dirt. I just don't want to default to these horses, even though I think New Matthew is dangerous because of the first race he comes out of is a good race. But I don't want to bet New Matthew and pick him because he's going to get bet based on this race, and I would prefer to bet him off his dirt race. But off his
Right.
dirt race, he'd be a much bigger price than he's going to be, and I just don't like that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that at all. And I think that it's sort of searching around for some proven form in this race because the horses that are coming out of turf races are the ones that are shorter prices on the morning line when we just don't know what their level of ability might be on the surface, though maybe some do have more of dirt-leaning pedigrees, but I think that I completely agree with you. They're going to be bet off of races that we don't know if they'll translate or not.
In general, these horses that have run on the turf, that run these races, take money and they lose. Not to say that some don't win, but in general, it's a bit of a crapshoot. Tap It Easy's another one of those horses.
He took some money first out.
He did, and he did absolutely no running
Yeah.
in there. So I don't know. Maybe he has some speed. Maybe he'll show speed in the dirt. I don't have any confidence he's any really kind of horse. He didn't really appeal to me. We both picked the first to run him more. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a dam that did win first time out. It was for a tag with a 46 buyer, but half to 2 debut winners, one going a little bit further, one going shorter. Price Discipline, 82 buyer, and Baxley with a 76, and as well as 2 other minor winners. And Linda Rice, I feel, isn't necessarily known for her first time starters being ready to go, but I think this year that's really picked up considerably over the past 5 years in general because she has 1 for 22 dirt route first time starters over the past 5 years. But overall, with first-time starters, it was 15 for 157 past 5 years, 5 for 37 this year. So that has really improved for the barn.
He's got pedigree. I thought it was interesting that Jose Lezcano was named on this horse as opposed to Trinity River, who will probably take some money in this race. Thought that was an interesting sign that he takes this horse a first-time starter. And I just didn't really want that many horses, or I thought horses would be underlays to what I would want to take here. Sunday Gift's not impossible, a horse who has run against some better horses, but he was inside last time on a track he wanted to be inside. On the other hand, the winner was not very good, but was a heavy favorite.
Yeah, and I think that the first race he comes out of, we saw Kenny B obviously come back and run well twice, winning next out and then running a good second. But that last race, last time out, I just thought that he really had the right part of the racetrack that you wanted to be in. But with a lot of unknowns, at least he has 2 dirt starts.
Race number 5, and we'll take a break after race number 5. A big scratch here was She's Cool coming out, the number 6. And that leaves Linda with 1 starter in this race. And Snappin' Buttons, we'll take a look at him. I guess he's the horse to beat, but honestly, do I really want to take this horse at a short price off of a near 7-month layoff? I know he's got the fastest races, but he's under the gun from the inside. There's some other horses that have speed outside of him. And I don't know, man. This is not the kind of horse that I want to take at a short price off this layoff, though obviously he can win. But the layoff's 4 to 8 months for Rob Atras. His numbers are lousy.
Yeah, I don't blame you for wanting to go in a slightly different direction. I originally went to She's Cool and then switched things up a little bit with picking Snappin' Buttons second. But I think overall, just having the fastest races, to come back in a spot that looks like this, I think that this is a field that's well within her scope if she comes back as the same type of horse. But I just didn't want at what I thought was going to be a short price with some possible alternatives that don't look so obvious on paper.
Go ahead with Valentine Gift. Good luck with Bobby Robato getting a second win this year. I wish you and Bobby the best.
Yeah, I mean, this one just had some 2-year-old form that winning first time out and then being against some tougher fields and having some legitimate excuses in both of those two dirt races while going a little bit further in the Maid of the Mist and then also ultimately being eased in that race and then having some issues at the start and the next one while being off for a while after that. I don't know if this horse is going to either replicate and improve upon that dirt form as a 2-year-old, but I think that I have enough respect for the kinds of horses that this one was facing early on and the kinds of numbers she was running as a 2-year-old on this surface. So just hoping for routine improvement.
Well, she didn't show any on the turf. I was texting with our friend Anthony Stabile yesterday, and I said that one of the best pieces of advice he ever gave me was that I picked a lot of Bobby Robato horses, and it's just not a barn that wins at a high percentage. And I wish you luck. There's always something appealing about them. I get it, but we'll see if this one gets it done in here. I like the 3, Patty Van Winkle. Maybe it's just a horse that is a new face to the crew, and I'm sick of the horses I've seen. I mean, I guess Bella Voce could win, but she was awful last time. She didn't take any money, so maybe she'll get bet a little more. Maybe she needed that race coming off a 3-month layoff, but shouldn't really need one. And you look at Patty Van Winkle, the last fast track she was on, a 74 buyer. I know she ran a slow figure back in August, but she's got a couple of fast figures, and those 74 figs are the only ones that put any horse in line with the number 1 Snapping Buttons. And I just wanted a new face coming in here, switching to Charlie. I know Charlie Baker's not had the best of years, but he is a good trainer and same connections. Just thought he might be an interesting new face coming over here, switching Charlie Bard, getting back on a fast dirt track.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I think that that's the viable alternative that's very logical based on races already run.
All right, that's the first 5. We'll be back with the late pick 5 after a quick break.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. Sarah and Andy, race number 6. And I imagine race number 6, as so many of these Brad Cox horses are, the favorite will be the 6, the 8, Take Me to London. We'll take a look at some of the race the horse ran. I want to show the head-on and pan of the start and then the quarter to finish of the race, because I thought that Take Me to London did have some legit trouble in this race. You know, this one says brush start. I don't
know about that.
I thought this was a much more significant trouble. This is the number 8 horse. We can get the head on going, please. Horse is all the way back to last after that. And I thought this horse had much more than
I
just
think that
brushed.
that's a legitimate bump.
Right, I
would
see
say.
bumps that are brushed, and now I see a brush that's a bump.
Do we need to go out there and have impact levels and?
Well, I don't know. It's hard. It's subjective.
No, I
and one
know, of
person
course
sees
it
one
is.
thing and one sees the other. I don't love this horse, but I thought he ran well enough, and he's probably just the horse to beat in a field where there ain't much going on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that this horse at least showed a little bit of something and then was sort of lugging in there, having a little bit of greenness in the stretch, but then sort of got righted and going in a straight path and had a little bit more to give. And so I think that just after that start at a level like this is a horse that showed me a little bit of fight, a little bit of something to still keep running and persevere. And the fig wasn't so bad for the level that we're looking at in terms of who this horse is going to be facing in here, though, of course, who knows about the first-time starters, but I thought just of the ones with any experience at all, very logical, very obvious.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be 3-1. I think he'll be closer to 8-5 in this race, though I suppose if the firster gets bet, that could change things a lot here. I tried to make a case for the 6 on the synthetic race. I couldn't really do that. As far as Sabby Sunset, well, to have to get a job and 4 horses that couldn't run. I didn't really feel like defaulting to the 8. Who, if the 8 were 3-1, I'd take the 8. But I'm skeptical he's going to be that
I
price.
hear
And
you.
just thought I'd take the Terra Nova first-time starter barn that can be live. Um,
Yep.
don't really have a lot to say as I said, 1 horse can run, and there is some pedigree on the dam side of the second dam. Nobody else in this race really did much for me. I'm not going to go to the turf horse Giants Audible, though I suppose it's possible, but
Yeah,
we'll
I
see.
wish that Rye on the Rocks was maybe in a different race. That would tell me that they thought that this horse might be a little bit like the siblings, because in for a
He was
tag with
50
that
to 1 and got
pedigree.
beaten a pole in the
Right.
first start in the turf with that pedigree. You'd think
You
they
think
would have run.
something's,
You would have thought they might have run in dirt
yeah,
first time.
it's not a
We'll
good
see.
sign.
Race number 7. This is the race where Vetriano comes out. Maybe it opens things up. It does change it from a pace perspective, and maybe it helps a horse like Worstride, who seems a little bit slow, or see if a horse like Print Rack can refine that form that seems to have eluded him. But maybe with a more aggressive ride from Romero Mirage, especially without the presence of the 8, a horse like that could be effective. You've gone to the 7, Crazy Mason.
Yeah, he's not helped by the scratches in terms of pace dynamics in this race. But I think that overall, when this horse was running earlier on this year, facing some very good 3-year-olds at that time and running competitively against them. And I know some of these races were going a little bit further, or perhaps on the Tampa Triple Crown Trail. But I just thought a very consistent type that was always sort of showing up against horses that we saw enough from going further on in the rest of this year. And now with that big scratch, I mean, I think it's a much more even playing field, and at least this one has some consistent numbers and hopefully can take a slight step forward off a little bit of a freshening.
We've both taken horses that lack speed. Yours a little more than mine, but both of them lack speed in a race where the pace is pretty murky, and that's problematic. I don't agree with you about Crazy Mason. I don't think he's ever been competitive against good horses. I just think he's run against some good horses. I don't really think he's ever run that well. I get it. He's not impossible, but I was a little worried he was a horse that was going to take money based on the races he's been running in, more maybe than the performances he actually put forth, which I didn't see much running. Not
Okay.
to say he can't win. This is obviously a bit of an open race, and there's sort of odd things going on here. Like, for instance, Jose Lezcano was named on Iridescent, and maybe that meant they thought he was the better horse in here, but Eric Cancel, who's not the go-to rider for that barn, was named on Stolen Magic, despite the fact that Jose rode that horse. Now, I like Stolen Magic as a horse, and with the dearth of speed in here, he's a horse that can at least be a little bit forward in this race.
Yep.
But I don't love the fact that Jose wasn't named on this one. I thought that was kind of a negative, but maybe I'm reading too much into it. I'm going to give Shipsational another chance. I know he hasn't won a race in a long, long time. Having said that, Eddie Barker's barn, in case anybody hasn't noticed, has been extremely, extremely hot for a while. Now, he's going to cool down like all trainers do at some point, but he hasn't run since Eddie was winning a lot of races. And even though he wasn't winning, it's not like he wasn't consistently running figures that if Print Rack isn't the horse he was, make him very competitive in this race.
Yep.
I don't like his lack of speed, but I do like how well the barn's done. And maybe a guy like Ruben Silvera will find a way to get him a little bit closer than he normally is. I scratched into him, obviously, with Vetriano
Sure.
coming out of this race. But I do think he's a little bit interesting. I want to give him one chance for Eddie.
Yeah, I think this is a much more wide open betting race now with the scratches. And, I think everyone was sort of, well, not everyone, but most were leaning on Vetriano logically throughout any sequences you might be playing. And now things are much more open to debate. So we'll see.
The worst thing that happened to Shipsational was running competitively against Classic Causeway down in those races at Tampa, because it sort of confirmed for Eddie the mistake that he was on the Derby Trail. This horse has not won a race since the Sleepy Hollow as a 2-year-old, and he's a better horse than that. We'll see if he can get it done finally. Race number 8. Thought race number 8 was an interesting race.
Yeah.
Tafuski Island did come out of this race, and I'll start the conversation by showing a horse off a layoff in the number 7, Caldo Candy, and this is a race 2 back. Obviously, things didn't go well. I know he was wide last time, but everybody was wide in that race. So it was the August 1st where all the running was done inside, except that race where everybody ran outside. On the other hand, he took advantage of a bias in this race. Who is the real Caldo Candy, and how much money is he going to take in this
Right.
race?
I think that this is a horse with some clear ability. I just think it's somewhere in between those last 2 races for sure, because he was able to take full advantage of exactly where you wanted to be on the racetrack and here. And I think that he comes out of the one race that day that didn't really abide by the rules of the day in terms of wanting to really stay towards the inside. So I think that looking at that, it's a little bit disappointing that he did regress that much versus that last race that was so bias-aided, because he has races that are more consistent prior to that, especially the 1-3 back.
I didn't show the replay of what you're talking about because I thought we were going to show it about a minute earlier when we showed Vetriano. Now, I tried what you're talking about last time and think it was a good idea. You just couldn't quite beat Vetriano. Problem I have is that he was almost 4-1 last time. He's going to be closer to even money today. And while he's going to probably win this race if he runs back to that 92 figure, I don't know. I kind of want to see it again, second off a layoff. So I found an alternative. What do you think is going to happen that's going to cause Acoustic Avenue to be competitive here?
That now he is making his second start on dirt for Mike Maker, and he did show significant improvement from his prior dirt races last time after having a tough beginning in that race, where I do think that was a legitimate bump and he was a little bit further back than maybe he necessarily could be in a race like that. And I think that he is the one coming out of that race with a little bit more upside and an actual excuse, because he has at least taken a step forward from his early 2-year-old races on the dirt, and he did show some good improvement for this barn.
I mean, he had a 78 buyer as a 2-year-old.
Well, he's
You're going back and forth.
178, and he's got some 60s and low 70s.
He's a big price. I wish you the best of luck with him. I didn't see it, but I suppose it's not impossible. I thought Lock and Key was a little bit interesting in this race. This is a horse that I know he's been running on the turf, but I like that he cuts back, and he's run plenty of races that are good enough to compete in this race on the dirt. And he's not that slow. I thought he was an interesting horse as an alternative to the number 10, getting back on a surface where he has run well. Yo Banana Boy is interesting to me because I think they understood last time. And I mean, this race we show was an overmatched field, but he really is a horse that needs to strut his stuff on the front end. They got to stop trying to be cute with him and think he wants to rate or worry there's other speed in the race. When he has run big races, he has done it by being aggressive. He is not going to run fast figures unless they're aggressive with him. Every single time they've let him roll, even his debut, where he ran a 72 buyer as a 2-year-old, which sort of equates to the 80s now, is the good races he's run. When they've rated him, he's run like crap. When they've set him down, he's run big figures.
Yep.
And while I don't love him, how strong a pace? Is Flying Emperor really that fast? Maybe he is coming in from Finger Lakes. Will Eric really push the pace? And I think the Ludovic is just supposed to be aggressive like last time. I don't love him, but I don't think he's impossible here if they're aggressive again.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that this is obviously a much tougher field than the one that he faced last time, but
sure.
he's been very competitive against fields just like this with many of these contenders in the past. So I think that if they just use his speed like they're supposed to, he's one of the players for sure. And then Quiet Wisdom returning, I know you don't have in there, but he's run some deceptively good races every once in a while, even though he was always sort of that over-bet type in the past.
Yeah, I don't like this horse at all in here. I was looking up numbers for Todd Pletcher, 5 to 9 month layoffs in the dirt. He's $1.30 ROI. I'm off a win. He's a 55-cent ROI. The numbers aren't very good. And I guess there's two ways to look at it with him. One you could say is, well, he had been running consistently pretty much every month for 8 months, and they wanted to give him some time off, and that's entirely possible, and they wanted to save him for the winter the next year. Very possible. I don't ever understand, though, and I find it a little dubious, they'd stop on him when he finally got good. And in general, when you stop on horses when they got good, when they come back, they just don't run as well. So he's not really my cup of tea in this race, but I don't disagree that there are things that you could like about him. I'm just not one of them. Race number 9 is the Comely, and I thought this was an interesting race. The favorite here is going to be the number 3 Alpine Princess, I would assume, off that fast race last time, and we'll show it. It's from Remington. If she runs back to this race, she's going to win here. And it's not as though it came out of nowhere, because she did run an 84 figure, winning the Untappable earlier in the year, before she sort of fell apart. I just don't want to trust completely that she's turned her career around based on a big win at Remington. And while she's probably the horse to beat, I don't want to take her at a short price.
I'm with you. I mean, I think that she projects to be in front in this spot. I think that she has the numbers overall that might be slightly better even without that last race. I think she'd be a short price based on the speed she projects to show, but I think she's going to be so much so the favorite because of one number when Yeah, she has that 184, but then she has a bunch of races that don't really put her above anybody else in this field that's coming to terms as of late. And I think that Scalable's a horse that's going to be right up near her of anybody else.
Well, we'll get to her in a sec because I was going to show Life Talk next in the replays. The 2 of the 3 Todds are going to choose to run. I guess the question with Life Talk is how much you trust this effort, how good you think Miss Justify really is, and sort of where did it come from? And I don't want to hear about the Demoiselle last year because she set a slow pace on a big biased racetrack,
Right.
and she had been a massive disappointment. Now, she was entered the Mother Goose. She was a very late scratch. I'm assuming something must happen in the receiving barn or on the way over here or something because she was scratched very late in the day. So I don't think it was one of those things where, you feel as though Todd scratched was
She's
sick,
back
whatever.
soon enough.
I'm not sure what to do with her. I do think she's very dangerous here, but I feel like she's close to a 1-number horse, a 1 number being last time.
Right, and then you think, how much upside does she really have? She had shown kind of who she was, and she, I don't know, I don't think her running an 84 again makes her so much so a standout in this field, though I guess if you think that she's going to necessarily have that consistency and show up with that type of race, then I don't know. A lot of horses in this race really look the same outside of their last race. It seems to be kind of the theme.
It's a strange race. I agree. Now, here's Scalable winning the Monmouth Oaks, and you can talk about her where she beat Gunsong, who obviously is a pretty good horse.
Yeah, I mean, Gunsong ran huge, of course, in the cotillion after this, and I think that she did not run well in the cotillion whatsoever, but we did see some horses come out with different types of rides and trips in that race and at least show a little bit more, and we haven't seen her since then, but I think that she was one that they seemed to really want to try a lot of different things with her, whether it was going a little bit shorter than that one try on the turf. And if you isolate her dirt route races outside of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, I mean, she seems to have shown a forward progression overall.
I don't see that. I think she ran a 1 big number at Monmouth. I don't know what to make of her. I really don't know what to make of her because obviously if she's able to run that race, she can win here. Her other races, I don't think she has a prayer to be competitive in here. I didn't know what to do with her now with the scratches. She is going to be forward a bit, and if Alpine Princess is vulnerable, I didn't love her races. I didn't know what to do with her. The Mother Goose is a funny race, and we'll take a look at the run down the stretch, and obviously Pretty Anna is going to be the one that takes all the attention in here, and probably rightfully so, the connections, blah, blah, blah. There is a fair argument that this was a dreadful race, and it was certainly backed up by the fact that Tarifa, as a short price, came back and lost to Churchill. But it did come up a reasonable number, and it's not like Tarifa and Gunsong aren't pretty good horses in the past. And originally I was looking at and thinking about Pretty Anna and thinking the one school of thought, that maybe the right school of thought is this race sucked, throw everybody outside this race. And maybe that's the right way to go and makes it easier. And I don't have a problem with that as a theory. It's probably the more accurate one. The other one that I had was a lot of people are going to bet Pretty Anna. And I know it's related to the connections and such. But she did run okay last time. The problem is she didn't run as well as Dorothy's Dream, who in my opinion actually ran a better race. She was wider. She lost more ground. And I think she ran the better race. Now, I don't know where it came from, and maybe it's an indication of just how bad that last race was and the whole thing was phony. Or then again, maybe she's a horse that started to improve when she started going longer distances, and she's improving. She gets a rider change for here. And if Pretty Anna is going to be 3-1, and she's going to be 12 to 15 to 1, I'm going to bet an idiotic horse like Dorothy's Dream in this race because I think her price is too high. Now, it may be that Pretty Anna should be 8 to 1 and she should be 15 to 1, and I'm just going to get nothing here. But if Pretty Anna is going to be a short price and you think she's interesting and you're ignoring Dorothy's Dreams because, oh, it's lower profile connections, you don't like her prior races, maybe she's a horse that's improving as well. And at least I'm going to go down at a big price because, honestly, I don't want to bet Alpine Princess or short price, and I don't know what to do with Todd's horses in this race.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair argument to make because I think that with the price discrepancy, you have to take a shot with a horse that perhaps ran a better race and is going to be that much of a bigger price.
She may just not be very good. And
well, it's
I
better
may
than
be picking a horse
Pretty Anna
that's
at 3-1.
just way too slow to win this race. Race number 10, big scratch with Smile Mon coming out of this race. And I want to show Unlimited Potential's big win at Saratoga. And I think it's important to note, take a look at the last race Unlimited Potential ran. Setting the pace, beating a pole, eased late. Well, was eased along with Smile Mon, who was the other horse that was a little bit forwardly placed in No, if I got the wrong, no, this horse was forwardly placed. And look, ran a 22 buyer, finished ahead of Smile Mom. I'm sorry, ran a 22 that day and improved to a 51 and then improved to those almost 90 buyers in the next 3 starts. So I'm not sure this horse just didn't get burned up in a pace. And it does feel like Ilke Kanamarchi's horses have been really running well lately. I thought this horse was extremely dangerous, particularly with the scratch of Smile Mon, because now he's probably going to be able to control. I don't trust him. Expensive horse, drop down to a bottom level. But I do think there's some things to like about him.
I mean, I think that you get a price relative to the extremely short price he was when he was not showing unlimited potential in the past. But I think that there's a fair argument to be made about that, and perhaps he was just facing a much tougher field in that last race. I didn't love how significant of a regression it was for him. But I see what you're saying as far as Smile Mon coming back and running those races that are quite a bit better.
Talk about your pick.
I think that he's just one that has a lot of races to go back to a time ago on the dirt, and he hasn't been with Ray Handel to try to run them. But when he was with Dallas Stewart, he was running against some horses that are at least listed stakes, if not graded stakes types in the past, and running numbers that are just a little bit quicker than we've seen from some of these on a consistent level.
I think he's obviously dangerous, but he's also 1 for 16 with 9 seconds and thirds, and I'm kind of wondering if Dallas dropped him as semi-damaged goods, because he ran terribly for Ray in his next start. He didn't really have any real run in there. And listen, I know Ray won with that horse, and Ray's a friend of the shows, but he's a little chilly, and he'd be the first to admit it. I mean, he was 1 for 57, I think, going into yesterday's race, and he got the firster home. So that barn's been a little cold. I've got him in there. I see all the things you're saying. I just don't trust this horse.
I hear you. I think it was an okay field last time relative to this one, but I hear you. He was not good.
Maybe. I'm going to bet Liberté de Bayou. Now, I don't like to go back to horses that I bet the time before that could have won at big prices. But the reality is he's going to be a decent price in here. Now, obviously, all the morning lines are changed in the scratch of the 3. But he's still probably going to be in the 5, 6 to 1 range. This horse ran incredibly well last time. He pushed an extremely fast pace that absolutely fell apart in there. Now, he's not going to be pushing the same pace here. He cannot be going forward with the likes of Unlimited Potential and Sorority Prank, and I just don't think that Jose is going to be quite as aggressive. I thought he ran very well and improved for Linda, and I like when Linda Rice is aggressive with horses, which is the reason I liked this horse last time. Of a maiden 20 win, she could have run this horse in a lot of cheaper spots, and she chose to protect him in a starter allowance, and she was right. And I thought he ran very, very well last time, and I'm going to give him one more chance in this race. I'm going to use the 1 and 7 in here at reasonable prices. But once again, be careful with that morning line, because I don't know.
Different.
What was the 3, 2 to 1 or something?
Yep.
I'm looking at what prices everybody is, and I assume he's short price. So the morning line favorite at this point is the number 11, Modica. He was kind of a last time was the time in his last dirt race, but
With
I
a
guess
pace
he's not
that
impossible.
fit him. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just didn't really see him getting the same type of trip that he got in that last race to run well behind Treaty Obligation, because there is some pace in here, but I just didn't know if it would materialize quite as quickly.
I thought there were better horses. Sarah, thank you very much. I'll go blow my nose after the show. You head over to Naira Bets, use the promo code BONUS200, and we'll match the $200 of your initial deposit while you're at Naira Bets. Check out Track Stats as well. And last but not least, you'll want to opt in for the 10,000 hit and split. Last week, a friend of mine was one of 3 that split $5,000 on the Aqueduct late pick 5. So make sure you opt in for those. And, you could get some real payoffs. I've talked to a lot of people at different times. Made scores, obviously. You need a bigger price one. But even if you make a score and it pays a solid amount and you get an extra solid, decent amount of cash, all the money never hurts. Sarah, thanks again. Chris Griffin will be up next with a reprise. The Scratched and Changes. Have a great day.
Almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.